former Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, Stephen Yates, along with former IDF Special Operations Commander Doron Kempel. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Stephen, over to you first. Iran offering a prize of some sort for captured U.S. pilots over state television there. 3 other aircraft were hit yesterday as well. Do we get the sense that this is kind of dumb luck on the part of Iran? After all, we've flown 13,000 missions so far, or that perhaps their defenses are not as degraded yet than we thought?
Well, I think there are a couple of different messages going on at once. I think we do have overwhelming air superiority in that anything strategic we need to do, we have an ability to do almost with impunity, and almost nothing that can be done on the Iran side to stop it. However, this particular area, it borders with Iraq. It's probably a rather porous area, and the sort of shoulder-carried surface-to-air missile that may have been used in this kind of case, it's one of those threats that probably never goes to zero in any warfare scenario, especially in a region that has been beset with war for decades. So I think it's an example of, yes, we've run 13 or so thousand missions. We've had a small handful that have run into these unfortunate complications, not to minimize the concern for the individuals involved. We pray for their safe return. We just don't have very much information at this point about the disposition of the lost pilot. And so that I think is where we hold our breath. But the mission remains very, very much on track, and I don't think it's changed by these events.
U.S. and Israeli military forces still ramping up that assault on Iran, as Stephen mentions. The president even posting a video of a key bridge being blown up in Iran. Trump says that he can end the war, though, in 2 to 3 weeks. Doron, there is political pressure for this president to get this done. But what should the conditions for such a cessation of hostilities actually be?
Thank you. First of all, prayers for our airmen still on the ground. I don't like the fact that the night has passed and we didn't pull him out. The audience should know that our best people and equipment are looking for him, and they're taking greater risk. That's why the Warhawk and the 2 Black Hawks went down. We're taking greater risk in order to get our person out. To your question, let's put everything in perspective. The reason that we're there is because Iran is working for China and Russia. They're the pit bull that can apply kinetic pressure against the West and us. There are 2 possible aims. The aim that the president has referenced, which is to eradicate the military of Iran, and by so doing, push out this cancer 5 years out. But they will be back. If that's all that we do, they'll be back, because the Russians and the Chinese are going to reconstitute them. We're going to be at exactly the same place in 5 years. The other aim that is less talked about is basically getting them to choose democracy over tyranny. That means regime change. Basically, the Iranians support us as opposed to China. In order to do that, we need to, A, continue with number 1, eradicate the military, get to a point where a friendly general, doesn't need to be a general, but that would be the perfect scenario, a friendly general that we have been preparing in the last 10 years is ready, and then we tell them, now start the uprising. Hopefully that uprising can be managed by such general by himself with his forces, without any involvement of U.S. special forces or conventional forces. But all of that, in my mind, does not involve occupation of Iran. If there are ground forces, it's probably engage, disengage, or engage, stay on the ground for a month, come out, regime change. That's the strategic aim.
The United Nations Security Council is set to vote on a resolution that would authorize the use of military force to open the Strait of Hormuz. That vote was set to be yesterday. It has now been postponed to a later date. Stephen, we have not opened it with our own Navy. Europe does not seem to want to engage. How do you think this ultimately gets done? Because it does need to get done.
It does need to get done, although there is nothing less serious than going to the United Nations to try to accomplish anything whatsoever. I think it has been a decades-long ultimate failure in one of its core reasons for being, which would be to make peace and to halt conflicts, and it's just proven completely irrelevant. And so any European or other power that's going there for a permission slip has sort of missed the memo on what's happening on the ground. I do think that our allies in the region and on the ground that have skin in the game are going to get very, very serious. I think we've had the big change of the Abraham Accords 1.0 and Trump 1, and we've got sort of a rejuvenation of that now. I think added on layer, I think, is a much more focused and empowered United Arab Emirates, perhaps Saudi, forces that want to get their product out to market and have a stake in doing so. Their customers should work with them. And the Europeans and some Asian allies need to wake up to doing that for themselves. I think that's one of the resets that President Trump has put out in the system.
It'll be interesting to see with the NATO Secretary General whether or not the president can use him to convince some of these NATO allies to get off the sidelines, unless they just quietly want to start buying more oil from Russia, which, when it comes to Europe, they're more than capable of trying to do something that ridiculous. Doron, what do you see as Israel's primary role at this point here? Is it to continue to degrade the regime by targeting its leaders, or is it perhaps a more aggressive incursion to secure enriched uranium or some other goal?
So if we think about the two aims, the overt aim, which is to eradicate the military, this is mainly done by the supreme power of the U.S. Military under Admiral Cooper. The other aim, which is regime change, requires undercover work on the ground. This is undercover work that's conducted by Mossad, CIA, and special military unit that know how to operate without uniform. This is what's going on the ground. And what they're doing is they're eradicating the leadership, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. That's why we see all the leaders disappear. The audience needs to understand that if there is an Iranian leader who's speaking for Iran right now, that means that the CIA and the president and the prime minister have decided that it's okay for him to survive. Nobody is speaking, nobody is being overt in Iran right now without these undercover forces deciding that it's okay for them to survive. So all of that is the role of Israel because they've established these infrastructures, Mossad infrastructures on the ground. These are agents, surveillance systems that allow basically these special forces on the ground to say target number 4 is in building number 5, room number 6 now, and then some F-35 or 15 releases ammunition that goes through the window. That's the level of precision and grasp that we have right now in Iran.
It is an extraordinary operation. It really has been, and it will continue at least for the next several weeks.
And something for China to watch, by the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a message being sent to Russia and China by this war happening.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.